Very much, Cecilia, for the introduction, and I say thank you to Domus Academy for these great opportunities to reconnect, the families, so, with the network. And of course, thank you to this impressive number of students that are attending this meeting, because of course, it's a great emotion for me and for Massimiliano to be part of this great arena this evening and this night, because actually, it's night in Hong Kong, where Massimiliano lives. I have to say that when we met remotely, of course, just a few months ago with Massimiliano, we started, to chat about his background and his history. I was really, really impressed, but also happy to be part of this webinar, because I think that, guys, for you, his story is so real and so interesting, as a great also inspiration for your career and for your professional growth. I'd like, Cecilia, to start with the slideshow, and also, with the first picture that was selected by Massi. This is actually, a picture that tells a lot about a very special project that you are running at the moment. And we're going to talk later on about that. But when I was looking at this picture, I really loved it, because it seems just like, a way to look at you from a different perspective, a different point of view. Here you are looking at you through the filter of the camera. And, in a certain way, this recalls me also your professional path. You are Italian, you are from a little town, Novi Ligure, a small town, and then you moved to Milan, and then you moved to Hong Kong. So when we talk, I really perceive, in your professional path, this intention of going out from your comfort zone every time. So to really, look at you and try to understand also your professionalism from a different point of view, also challenging yourself in different kind of experience. And of course, now you are living in Hong Kong for 13 years, and you have gone through different works, different experience that you're going to describe to us. So I think that, also in a certain way, cities and living in a big city, in a big metropolis, just like Hong Kong, is a really, key element that affected, your way of looking at things. Also, I was thinking you started from a very small town, and now, you live in a very big city. So there's, really this, how you say, progression, of urban scales in your career. So just to start, just to break the ice, Massimiliano, can you tell, something about what does it mean for you being an Italian in Hong Kong? Now we have in front foreign students living in Milan. So what does it mean for you living in a different context, also with a different, surrounded by a different scale?
Well, I think, first of all, thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. And if it's making everyone's life easier, just call me Massi. I think it would be easier. Regarding being like an Italian, being like a foreigner overseas, in a very different situation from where I've been born and raised. Well, I think it takes some adjustment with time. It takes you to be very open to experience a new culture, new languages. I enjoy, try to learn languages and of course discover the culture where I'm living in. And I always, I think, thought that was part of my process, and I shouldn't just come here as an Italian and just look at things through that filter, but really try to experience, explore it, being exposed to it. And of course, you don't like everything, like I didn't like everything in Italy. So there's always pro and cons in the experience, something that you really like, something that even you really don't like, but you learn from both sides, and that also is part of possibly the experience in the profession, right? So that would be probably my first reaction to the question. Like, I learned to be more open. I still learn, because not every day are the same, not all the experiences. So yeah, this is I think the main first point for this experience. It's been very different. I mean, if you think coming from a small town of 25,000 people in in this like area between Milan and Genoa, with a very different background, and then finding myself in a city of like 7.4 million people. It's a big jump. Yes, I had experience before overseas before coming here, but not like moving and really changing completely my life and planning my life in Hong Kong and treating Hong Kong as my home. It's a completely different story than spending maybe 4 months, I don't know, in the US or having like a short trip somewhere. Mm-hmm. So, but even like 1 year in Milan, when you study at Domus, you need to experience what you have around, right? That's part of it.
And Massi, just starting to talk about your experience in Domus, that of course, was a great experience, to test this kind of going out to your comfort zone. Because can you tell us what did you do before joining Domus? So what did you study? So and why also you decided to enroll in Domus?
Well,
there are also a series of amazing slides, guys, that Massi collected for us about the experience in Domus that will make us also smile and laugh and think about also how much there's behind the educational path in itself.
So briefly, before Domus, well, I always been studying something related to design. Even my high school was like a surveyor, geometer. I quite like it. Was really like giving a lot of foundation. And I didn't study university immediately. I was working already in an architecture firm since I was 20, in a very small firm with like 7 people. But then after a couple of years, I've been convinced that I could actually also go to university. I was a bit like, I'm not sure, I was actually liking working. And then I decided to join university. I went to Genova. I studied civil and environmental engineering. I was a bit like confused at first. Probably I would have preferred to study architecture, but then I proceed, and definitely they gave me good basis, scientific basis, in how to approach like problems in a certain way. After a few more years of experience of work again, I then decided to join Domus. And why? Well, definitely because of its reputation. It's really strong, like background in design. And then because I knew who, or at least I knew the reputation of who was the director at the time, which was the architect Gianandrea Barreca. And definitely for me was very interesting to be under his teaching. And definitely the experience didn't disappoint at all. Actually, I gained so much, so many levels. And the experience was like, as you can see, I mean, we were a group of like, I think 15 possibly, or 16, I don't remember exactly, hopefully they were in the photo, from Taiwan, Turkey, 2 Italians plus me, India, Korea, Germany, so many different cultural, different background, also academic background, because they're like engineers, architects, interior designers. So that was also very interesting, because it's not that, at least not just in Italy. At first I was thinking Italy, but also overseas. It's not always someone coming from another academic background or professional background is not always welcome to work on certain scale, and that may connect later to our discussion or certain typology of projects. Instead, it was actually very welcoming, and sounds like it was the right decision for me, because it really changed my way of looking at things in terms of design, and not only, but also learning a different way of thinking and process. So for me, it was very, very
Massi, what made you decide to enroll in Domus? Because I remember that you mentioned to me that you met some former students, so there was, just some particular meetings pretty significant to make you say, okay, I'm gonna start Domus, right?
Well, I think I remember also that this person gave me really good feedback, and so then I start to check a bit, ask more, and sounds like it was something very different than the typical exposure you could have in university. A very different school, and clearly out of the standard. So that was clearly like exciting. And again, in the experience, if we can talk a bit about like maybe what I really appreciate was the way of teaching, the exposure of like a lot of projects during the year, and most of the projects were actually focusing on real background, real case studies, real brief, with real clients. Just
also here, Massi, sorry to interrupt you, but in this picture, you were not in Italy, you were for a workshop abroad, right?
Yeah, because one of the projects was related to this workshop of like, I don't remember how many days that we had in Luxembourg. And we met with other 3 schools, and also like representative of like the area, the municipality, and now I don't remember exactly all of them. And we were discussing a possible vision, strategic vision from planning and urban design aspect to re-envision like the industry of this like former like plant on the border in between Luxembourg and France. And that was a very strong experience. And to bond with your classmates, with meet new people. And it was a clear, very, very interesting brief, interesting project. Strong experience, nice, we had a lot of fun.
Funny moments, convivial moments, because also, in the upcoming slides, there are a series of also gatherings that you had during that experience, apart, in addition, to the to study only.
Of course. Well, it's part of, I think it's part of the experience, and I think it's the right way of approach it. It's also probably create even more bonding later for work. So you see, we were always together when we were around. Also, Gian Andrea was joining us. It was very, very a good group. We are really actually also a lot of fun and good friendship. Well, then plus I always like to joke and try to make everyone laugh. So I was definitely in my environment. But it's nice because also multicultural environment. That was really something that I really liked. As you know, maybe Italy is not the most exposed to diversity and so on. So Domus offer also that.
And Massi, among all the experiences, I know that you still have in mind, some key workshops and the projects that you attended in Domus, but there's anyone that is particularly significant for you still nowadays, that you still remember? I don't know, when you work, you still remember, what you did in Domus. So.
Well, I think I share with you guys one photo of one workshop where we were consulting for, again, re-envisioning the future of an iconic place in the north of Milan, in Arese, which was the former plant of Alfa Romeo.
Arese, yeah.
And yes, and iconic because of the brand, and iconic also architecture-wise, because it was very important for a very functional spine that was like practically the main core, the main engine of the entire plan. I was checking a bit, and unfortunately, nowadays it turned to be something very different than what I was hoping. But the experience was very strong because we really always been pushed to think out of the box. It wasn't just about planning or urban design or architecture. We really had to think about understanding the territory, understanding the context, the people, and then try to really generate an idea. And that's, to answer to your question, that's something that I still bring with myself, and I'm still learning and developing. So that was, I think, a very important experience for me. Hopefully also for all my classmates. Very, very nice. We went to the museum. We spent all the time, went to check very different parts of like the building, how it was functioning during the different seasons, the shift. It was very, very interesting to understand and learn about. So this one definitely is still like, but each project was approaching that way. And that's what I really appreciate of that year in Domus. Really going, understanding, you know, and dissecting the problems, the context, the site, the user, the needs, and all the possible components, which I still try to, you know, perfect, but, you know, there is always something to learn every day, even now.
Of course. So you really got, we can say, you know, a method, an approach that you are still applying. And as you were saying, you are still also refining and every day, you know, improving in your professional practice. But I remember that also you told me that 1 year ago, you started to teach at the university. So, you know, in a certain way, you went to the other side, no? You were a student at Domus, and then now, you know, you are becoming a teacher. So it's interesting also to see how much Domus experience is still present in your professional, you know, career as a teacher. So how much also you are, I say, reproducing that kind of teaching model.
Well, I think it's very useful. It's really helping me. It's just past like 1 year anniversary, like a few days ago. We just started our first semester again at the University of Hong Kong HKU. I'm teaching the Master of Urban Design, and 1 year master, same of Domus. What I'm teaching you a design studio, and what I'm trying to apply is really about how to improve your understanding of the process, the site, the brief, generating a brief. I think the experience of Domus is like, as a student now trying, you know, to be a teacher as best as I can and still learning, I really make treasure of what we experience. I'm really trying to translate and pass what I developed in those years of professional career to the students, and really try to be more pragmatic, very practical, but also based on, at the end, on research, but still like focusing on what is the reality of the project, not too theoretical, but more really design based on real context, real clients. So that is something that I'm trying to do. And I remember that the past semester I was teaching at the 2 universities, and I had the luck of lead a very similar studio like we were approaching in Domus. And I had to lead 3 different 5 groups with a mix of different departments: landscape architecture, architecture, and interior design. 3 each group from 3 different disciplines to work on the same project for a real clients, which is the Stanley Dragon Boat Association. It's a very special discipline, and there is a festival every year in Hong Kong. There are different competitions, and we have to generate proposal to redevelop this like training center. And that was exactly the same scenario that we were approaching in Domus. And I try my best to push whatever I had to give to the students. They just finished the beginning of August, mid-August, the exhibition. Everyone was happy. You could probably find also some material online or some video. It would be nice, maybe you can see. And yeah, definitely I was able to apply some of the experience in Domus also in the teaching. So yeah.
And Massi, you mentioned, this typical on-site approach characterizing, the methodology of Domus. And in the background, we see, some pictures regarding a very memorable experience that the Master in Urban Vision and Architectural Design organized for Fuori Salone 2010, as a part of this Milan Green Festival, no?
Yep,
In this case, you were really, involved on site. So can you tell us something about these initiatives?
Yeah, so it was part of one of our workshop, and it was together with the two clients that they were like participating to the Milan Green Festival. And we had different proposals, and we were lucky that our proposal then is selected to be part of the event. We had the chance then also to create this fun installation, but behind this fun installation, there was a lot of understanding of one street in Milan, understanding all the possible elements the street was like posed by and the usage. We decided to do this kind of provocative installation where we just occupy, which is happening also around the world, occupy a parking space, and it could be something else. It could be dedicated to people, to many other things. And it was fun because we were able to support us and pay for €1.50 to extend the life of this like fun installation. We spent almost 6 or 7 hours there. It was fun. Even I remember that even the police, actually the carabinieri, they passed by and they even didn't know how to react, because at the end we were actually paying for the space. We didn't out of the boundary. I was a bit concerned, and everything went fine. It was a very good experience. Everyone had fun. Other classmates joined. They went to support. The people of the neighborhood supporting. We were like near Parco Solari. We had to prepare everything. And I love the end of this like silly video. I make it very fun and everything, because you can see really like the transformation from what we are trying to propose. And as soon as we remove those few things to occupy, immediately someone parked the car again.
Let's see that.
So, please.
Special, sir. We know everybody is. We built too many walls. Yeah, we built too many walls. And now we gotta run. A giant fist is out to crush us. We run in the dark. We don't carry dead weight long. We send them along to heaven. I carry my baby. I carry my baby. Her eyes can barely see. Her mouth can barely breathe. I can see she's afraid. She can see the danger. And we don't want to die or apologize for our dirty God, our dirty bodies. Now I stick to the
Great. So it was a great success. You actually got a lot of interest from the people.
Yeah, I think many of them, they reacted quite well. Some, they were actually enjoying, having fun.
Curious, yeah,
It was,
I say also
and then we
curious.
enjoyed. I think you can see we enjoyed.
And then a jump, you know, over time, because here you just showing us some picture regarding, you know, your life as a teacher in Hong Kong.
Yeah, this is the graduation from the past year. It's like end of July. Yeah. So it's again the students from the Master of Urban Design. We're like 33 students. Yeah, it was well, I was very happy. I mean, you will see me then in the next quarter with one of my students. I was very proud. Very happy. It's a strong experience. I think also teaching is like a very, very rewarding experience. And now I also understand maybe how it was difficult for my teacher to have me as a student. So I understand more things.
Of course, of course. And but Massi, teaching is only, you know, one part of your professional path in Hong Kong. I remember that you told me I moved to Hong Kong just 1 year after my graduation in Domus, and there you started a series of different professional experience. So can you tell us something about your path? Because also I think that in your case, you know, the process is very, very important also to understand and to get, you know, to the awareness and to the level that you have, you know, so far. So as just like in design, it's not only, you know, the single experience, the single projects, but also, you know, is the path, the process, a very, you know, learning element.
Yeah.
You started with a very big studio, right? An English company.
At first, when I arrived at the beginning, I was actually in a smaller studio. And after a few years, then I was able to, this is the last one, I will tell you later. And I was able then to land a job in like this big British firm, Benoit. We're very happy and very great opportunity. I was in between two teams working architecture, also during interior, because I was like working on also a smaller scale, but more related to user type, user experience, service design. So, after 1 year, unfortunately, it was like the beginning of 2015, and there was this like crisis for the construction industry in China, which was one of the main core of our projects and clients. And unfortunately, one day, me and other 99 persons we lost our job. And that was like kind of like a strong moment, strong experience, where you had like so many different colleagues, and it definitely was not easy at first. So that is part of, like, you see, moving up, and then suddenly you have this like moment that you didn't expect, that you didn't probably plan for your career, for your city, for your life. It's not just about like in typology approach, really like losing your job in a big crisis, which happened also in other parts of the world and so on. And from there, I mean, I rearranged myself. So at first, with like all clients, always in China market, together also with some probably the Chinese students who have work experience in China may know, with some local design institute, I was able to do some like consultancy for like projects. And then one day, through a contact, a friend, I've been suggested to join another big company, but in a complete different industry, complete different scale. And the company was H&M. And at first I was like, I'm not sure, because I mean, I never really worked that type of company. It's not just about design, right? So then okay, let's approach, because I wasn't really keen, to be honest. At first, I wasn't really keen then to go to architecture. That's also part of the story. So I decided to say, okay, let's try a new typology. I was very I'd be also disappointed what happened possibly. So probably changing environment, changing typology can be a new experience. I knew I had to start over and learn a lot. So I joined the company. I was in the Asia Pacific store planning team with many other colleagues at the office, open office. And I would like then to talk about those later. And I was at first focusing on different market. Then actually after probably 1 year, I became the responsible of Japan market and Vietnam market. And I opened the Vietnam market, the first probably 6 stores. And it was a very good experience. Learning, really, you need to dedicate yourself to start over, really learn a new typology project, but also related to many other parties, because the company is not just about design, it's really actually making brand function, right? So you work with leasing team, construction team, visual merchandising team, and then working with the local architect, because we're pushing maybe the project to schematic, and then you cooperate with the local architect to bring the drawings in construction. But you also do site inspection, go there for the opening, and all of the purchase for items. So it was very, very like compelling experience. During those past years at H&M, I've always been in touch with the previous colleagues, which they kept teasing me to going back to architecture and planning and urban design. And after a couple of years, then I said, okay, I'm coming back. And I joined a former colleague and also friend. We were together leading a master planning urban design team. And the past few slides I would like to show, if you go back a few slides, they are part of the project that we're developing with the team. Our focus was the Southeast Asia market. And clearly you can see we work on big scale, big mass development. Like we are going from like 50 acres to 90 acres or even more. We also had some like regional planning. And of course,
I went to master planning to urban design scale after a more corporate and retail experience, right?
Yes. From a store of 100 to 200 square meter, maybe on one floor, more floors, to a city.
Yeah.
And
maybe, Massi, you started also to understand what exactly you wanted to do in life, because something that also again about the process, I think that in the first years you spent in Asia, in Hong Kong, you had also to face some ups and downs. Okay, so because of the crisis, also, you lost the job. So you had also to reinvent yourself, also, in this critical moment. And also I remember that when we talk, I found this a very significant, something very meaningful experiences to share with all the students, also because, in the context where we live, especially, nowadays in this, general uncertainty, I think that, that's a very important skills that, everyone really needs to train and to exercise in a certain way, also, from a mental point of view. So, being able to rethink ourselves, being, more flexible, and never, conceive any kind of downs or any kind of failure as a stop in your career.
Absolutely.
Never, it should be only, the input for formulating, some reflections for, to understanding better what you really want to do in life. So every failure should be intended as an opportunity first.
Very true. Yeah, it's always a there's always a possibility, always an opportunity. If you, of course, like try to push for it, you don't have to see that in a negative way. Even it could be first possibly, but you can react and you can definitely like find many other opportunities. And when we're passing now the pandemic, is the same case. So what I would like to add, and I really like how you immediately capture that part. Now, like I'm teasing you on a question. I really like that you observe the evolution or the moving between the scales, which possibly has been part of that process. Sometimes wanted, sometimes maybe not, right? Because it was for necessity or wanting to change an environment, like happened during that unfortunate event of losing the job. But then it became an opportunity to learn so much. It wasn't probably the typology of project that I loved, but I learned so much about project managing. And that is helping me even now. So you see, you can always find the right part of that experience.
Yeah.
So that was very good. And during those years, also like changing, moving through scales, living in a big city, I almost found this answer when I was like trying to understand how to talk to you, because it's so easy talking about project, the others, but when you really want to describe yourself, it's not always the easiest way to do. You don't see probably from another perspective, right? I'm still now for me. So I think part of the moving scales and living the big city where I realize I'm missing the human scale, because in Hong Kong, we are missing the human scale. And definitely coming from a small town, I always took it for granted, the human scale. I grew up in a human scale. I always start my lecture or my seminar with like a silly like things from my childhood, but that's to explain how was, nested in my life, the human scale more. But in Hong Kong, if you grow up here, if you live here, clearly you miss it. So all of this, they pushed me to probably what I really now is my passion, kind of obsession, which is like the human scale, and always try to apply to every project, every analysis, every study. And that brings to the next chapter, right?
Exactly, exactly. Because human scale is something that is in the name of your current practice, of your own studio, that it's called Persone. And I think exactly that the name of your studio and also, the logo is very, meaningful about, the kind of approach that, you're trying to pursue. But, as you were pointing out, maybe, living in such a context, living in a big metropolis, living in a city where, human scale does not exist, or actually, it is not taken so much into account, has become, the trigger, or actually a further trigger for this kind of reflection. So, Massi, can you really, tell us more about your own studio? You opened your own studio in 2019. So again,
end of 2019, yes.
Yeah. So again, it can be intended as a further milestone, in this kind of process, in this kind of a professional path that we are talking again. And normally, when someone opens his own practice, is a sort of a synthesis of, some reflection, some awareness, of some points of view and approach that it really wants to follow. And I think that in your case, specifically, your studio, Persone, called in this way, is very significant exactly for, the kind of awareness that you have been reaching over time about, the city and about, the public space. So can you explain, better also the kind of vision that you are fostering?
I think it was a reaction. It was also becoming aware of like the starting of that knowledge starting, which I'm still gaining knowledge, but being, you know, reacting to the industry, reacting to the environment that I've been exposed for several years, and to the project that I was working on, and to the project that I'm seeing around me, and the city, the neighborhood. So the reaction was really like, okay, I really want to focus on people. Because I really want to focus on the needs and the interaction the people has with the city. Of course, I did a lot of study about it. I really tried to inform myself a lot in the past, at least 8 years. It's so important. I learned from very important firms, studio, and very important architects, reading, studying their project, and then try to really utilize this knowledge in my project, and now even more because I focus on it. So why persone? Why people? Which persone means people, because it should be at the center of our design, not just mine. It should be at the center of all of us, all of our design, every design. No matter if you design a city, no matter if you design a building, a street, or a room, or even an object, a product, we need to remember that our main scope is designing for people, is designing to make people lives better. And unfortunately, if we want to talk about city, you clearly see that in the past decades, in the past probably 60 years or more, most of the city has been built not for people, but for profit. So these are all the reason and all that kind of like push that I had to go towards this direction as a reaction. And yeah, the focus is clearly like try to apply human scale and really like reinterpreting projects with that approach. And again, learning a way of approaching different scales, you can approach it to even an object or to a street or even to a room. But you always need to focus on what is the main subject, which is people. So that was, I think that is the best explanation I can give. And the experience started with like different type of projects, like some research really about like the informal use of spaces, which they are a
just
reaction.
like in the pictures that we see in the background, right? Because
yes, exactly. I call them urban infiltration. Yes, they are reaction. They are reaction to something that is not there. They are reaction of people. They can happen maybe for a short time of the day or for a specific time of the day or the week, where because a certain needs or certain lack of space, private and public, they start to utilize the city, open spaces in what they need to do. This, for example, is a typical Sunday in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a very large number of domestic helpers. Actually, I would say that Hong Kong runs on domestic helpers. Otherwise, families, they wouldn't be able to run their household because they are too busy on work. Hong Kong is very like a lot of working hours, is a very fast-paced city. Many family, most of the family, they domestic helpers. But because of the small size of the residential units, because of the city has really no space, and the only day off they have Sunday, then you see all of these situations happening in the city, and clearly they conquer like underpass or sidewalks next to a highway, because even parks or these pocket parks, they are not enough at all. Think about Hong Kong. In most of the district is like below 40% of the requirement they should have. They're supposed to be 2 square meters per person. In my neighbor here that we're talking about, they are 0.7. Or maybe elderly opening like shops in premises that they are not run by public policy, public regulation. So when the banks, in this case, is closed, no one can send them away, and maybe they can round, you know, the money they can have at the end of the month, because it's a very difficult situation socially as well. So all of these, they are not just, oh, it's a silly thing, it's a silly photo. There is a lot of background that it takes time to understand, and
Of course.
even more time to find a possible solution, because it's not just about talking to the lady, but there are many, many stakeholders. They are not really looking at those situations, from authorities to many others.
And I say that, you know, in a very not human, unfortunately, city, you are really challenging, on the contrary, a very, you know, humanistic approach, a very human-centered approach. So one question is, how many difficulties, Massi, have you found in your path, in your approach? So, of course, you know that working in a context where, you know, normally the way of doing things is different, is very challenging. No, Hong Kong has been dominated by the real estate market, a very aggressive real estate market for many, many years, so 4 times. And, you know, there, you are there, and, you know, with your background, and also, you know, your Italian culture, your Italian spatial culture, because I think that's also another very important component. So we live in a country where, you know, the concept of public space and the concept of conviviality are very strong indeed. So you are there, and, you know, you are trying to foster a different kind of approach. So in this sense, you know, how many difficulties did you find, or, you know, how many success and appreciation? I remember that you mentioned to be a very key event happening, you know, after the pandemic, where, you know, really someone was looking for you. And so someone maybe really realized, you know, some critical aspects of that reality.
Yes. And that was like the beginning of 2020. And I started to work on this idea. It's actually, at first, was a self-initiated project. Because again, it started from like, we found ourselves locked down in Hong Kong before they even, like, the Europe was realizing of COVID. And that was unfortunate, because beginning of 2020, I lost 2 projects because I couldn't travel, and all the markets, they start to really like shake, and everything was put on hold. And so in those few months in between things, I also put together this idea, because I foreseen like many possible future opportunity. This is another project also regarding this public space and public life in Hong Kong. But the one we're talking about in 2020, it started really like calm, starting to talk with, of course, I have a lot of connection, talking about with a friend that is also district council, Paul, and talking about with like a design magazine, a friend Susie from Design Anthology, and they start to be interested in, like, say, it's a very cool idea. We were like, oh wow, you really do yourself, try to support your community, which is a district of like nearly 100,000 people, and it's my home, and I have idea to make it better. So why not to push it, because no one is doing that. And those are all like the meaning why I did that. I see things happening, but I never seen that we could actually do better. But if you wait for, like, you know, the project to come, and it's always not really going the direction, which is probably happening already now. It's more like bottom, right? So happened that somehow I was unlucky the district and also Hong Kong. One of these, the core of the study was an illegal space. Maybe we should go forward to the project. I can explain a bit better with a photo. This illegal space, which is now, it was also famous overseas. It was called Instagram Pier, because mostly was known because people were taking photos there, but actually was a huge resource of public space because it was providing 32,000 square meters of space detached from the city and from the traffic. Of course, it was still an active small dock where there are, like, of course, arriving goods, loading, unloading, but the coexisting between the public life and the activity of the docks, the port, was actually quite okay. And it was so easy, day and night. It was a resource for the neighborhood, which clearly we lack of public space. And the little space we have is not really adequate. Playground, sitting out area. There are two nice parks. Those are two friends and also cooperating with me at the projects. We won a competition with the gentleman on the left. I'm going to tell you later. And so after the closing to the public about that very important area, after a few weeks, I received a call from the government through all the talks in between the, the municipality, district council, and they were like interested to know more about the idea and if we could have a sidewalk. And that was like, okay, wow. At first I was a bit concerned. I said, what do they want from me? Because they called me privately directly. But then it actually was like a nice discussion. I also then been invited to the Central and Western District Council, which for the Oncon Island, the Central Western District, to present the proposal, the vision plan. That was 2020 vision plan. And it's been clearly supported by all the district council. There were also all the relevant departments from Affairs Department, Transport Department, Highway Department, Development Bureau, and so on. And that was quite a good start to be just one Italian designer in Hong Kong. From that, then it went a bit quiet, so I pushed it forward and I started to knock on more doors. And thankfully, an NGO which is supporting design and research, they decide to found with a grant. From there start the second chapter, which is the beginning of 2022. It took me 2 years myself pushing on the free time, in between projects, in between my private life, doing street observation, collecting data, talking to this, networking, sending email, presentation, and many interview of different people. And finally something came back. But not just for me, to pushing the project, because this is a non-profit project from my side. And I was able to expand, and we created the neighborhood lab, West Point Neighborhood Lab. The project is called West Point Street Line. And soon we're going to arrive to that. There are more slides to reach you. And I create 3 different initiatives. One is about to further develop the report, which then is going to end probably, we're going to finish it. I have few students helping me. We're going to finish end of September, and then we're going to shoot out more mail to, again, government, developers, big offices, NGO, Domus Academy, and we made one presentation of the project. And that is the one initiative. The other initiative, I decided to also have sort of like educational workshop for university students for free, paid by the money that we collect with the grant and other. And they join this session of workshop where I really want them to see through my eyes, rather than just, going from the more orthodox way, maybe of urban design, but looking from more like from the street, looking at really what is understanding the city. And we had this like discussion. I selected students, some they actually, they also asked me from the 3 different universities I was teaching. And it was quite good. We're going to see some photos soon. And the other initiative was this idea of like talking to people, talking to different stakeholders, which can be my neighbor, the guy just downstairs owning a bicycle shop, or talking to the district council, talking to developers, talking to architects. And we're going to see a bit. I was even able to talk to the creator of the Plus Museum in West Kowloon. It's the new big development that is creating a new destination in Hong Kong. and trying to learn from them what I think it was useful to understand for the project, for the community, for projects similar to this, and creating this kind of like digital archive. We have already one episode out on YouTube, and we're gonna publish soon the second episode. There are so many things, so I always have to try to push everything.
What you are saying, I think that it's very clear that for you it's very important, this work on site, this real work. So this means observing directly, what happens on the street, how people behave, how people react. And I think that also, in the slides that we were looking in the background, it's a very significant, this mix between a digital and an analog approach. There's, this idea of sketching, of taking notes, that is a part of your practice. And also, I think that, in this year, that this era that is more, driven by technology, also, the kind of approach that you are fostering is very significant, because especially, in the practice of urban design, we can't, rely simply on what software says, on what, softwares and data can predict. But it's just like that you are saying, we still need, to work with people first, and we still also need to work with other eyes and with other hands. Yes. And that's a very significant aspect. So what you normally do, you really, sit on the border of the street, you observe people for a long time, you take notes. So that's exactly what you do.
Yes, yeah, it requires a lot of strategy. It's actually not just like really just going, oh, I'm going to look at space. There's a lot of, and there is a lot of preparation, understanding what you want to investigate, because now I'm just like investigating a site for possible project I'm pitching for, hopefully, and I've been requested by a possible client that they start to understand the value of this, and you strategize and understand what is the target that you need to look for, the question that you need to answer. Because at the end, of course, it's not just about talking, providing social spaces, it's also understanding that the city function also commercial, function. So it's always a balance. And you need to understand how to create that balance between cultural and social value and commercial value.
But I'd like to thank you very much, Domus, of course, and Cecilia for this great opportunity. Then, of course, Massi, our great guest. And again, every time that I listen to you, I think how much, we can learn and we can sort it out for it. So I'm really thankful and grateful for sharing your experience in such a frank and very transparent way.